Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I know some of you don't like when I tackle, when I watch short videos tackle these big subjects, but I like the sort of quick pace, get the gist, a feel for what the conflict's about, and then I can dive in, more deeply. I'm in this for the long run. It's not like I'm gonna watch this video on the War of 1812, a little over 3 minutes long, Jabsy and history matters, I like that, and then just never touch the subject again. So don't worry. Let's get right into it. My name's Connor. Hit all the buttons. Original link to the video, Jabsy's video, top of the description below. If you are not ready to learn, there's the door. You're in the wrong class. Probably late for home ec. That is down the hall. Make me some cheesy breadsticks. What? I loved hot lunch in school. Like, I always remember it. And, packed lunch was nice. Every time I was like, no. I saw what was in the line, those chicken patties. And when you got to high school, there was the wrap bar with, like, crispy buffalo chicken wraps. And they'd make it. The pizza, I loved it. Cheesy bread. How did I get started talking about this? I don't know how. Let's go.
At the beginning of the 19th century, Britain was fighting the French.
Sorry. It's a short video, like I said. But that means if you miss even a second, like I'm going to take my drink of water now so I don't. So you can miss, like, that Bill Wirtz video, History of the Entire World, I guess. Like, you can blink and miss 300 years. So I want to make sure I absorb. You know what I mean. God, I love water. Okay. Go.
At the beginning of the 19th century, Britain was fighting the French in the Napoleonic Wars. They hoped to cut off supplies from reaching the French, so passed the Orders in Council in 1807. This required all traders from neutral nations to go through British authorities first. The British were also removing seamen from US ships, many of them British-born, and forcing them to join their already overstretched navy.
Is that privateering or something else?
Counter the trade issue, British-born, and forcing them to join their already overstretched navy. To counter the trade issues, US Congress passed a bill in 1810, promising that if either nation, Britain or France, dropped the trade restrictions with them, the US would cut off trade to the other nation. France was the first to take them up on this offer, and
so they're
promising that if either nation, Britain or France, dropped the trade restrictions with them, the US would cut off trade to the other nation.
Okay,
France was the first to take them up on this offer.
So if you stop us, then we'll not help your enemy.
And in November 1810, the US cut off trade with Britain. Meanwhile, the Americans had just purchased a vast amount of land from the French, who wished to expand into the disputed territories in between. However, in the Northwest Territory, the British were supporting the native resistance against American expansion. They aligned themselves with the Shawnee chief Tecumseh, who had united many tribes into an Indian confederacy. This persuaded many in the US government to demand war against Britain. War was declared in June 1812. Tecumseh, who had united many tribes into an Indian confederacy. This persuaded many in the US government to demand war against Britain. War was
I don't look. I want to make a nice flowy video, make it a good entertainment for you guys. But if I couldn't go back and understand what I didn't, then I wouldn't do the channel. All right, it wouldn't be worth me not learning. And so when I don't understand something, I'm going to go back.
Off trade with Britain. Meanwhile, the Americans had just purchased a vast amount of land from the French and wished to expand into the disputed territories in between. However, in the Northwest Territory, the British were supporting the native resistance against American expansion.
Okay, that's
they
what I
aligned
missed.
themselves with the Shawnee chief Tecumseh, who had united many tribes into an Indian confederacy. This persuaded many in the US government to demand war against Britain. War was declared in June 1812, and the Americans crossed into Canada straight away. However, they were halted and driven back by the British and the Indian Confederacy.
I just wanted to say, kind of growing up, I always got this war mixed up with the French and Indian War, which was kind of the American theater, North American theater of the of the 7 Years' War. But anyways,
to demand war against Britain. War was declared in June 1812, and the Americans crossed into Canada straight away. However, they were halted and driven back by the British and the Indian Confederacy. The British pursued the Americans across the border and took Detroit. The US was able to counter and defeat the British Navy in the Great Lakes at the Battle of Lake Erie in 1813. This allowed the Americans to retake Detroit. They then defeated the...
Question about boats. I know one of the two is more buoyant. I believe salt water is more buoyant than fresh water. And so would they, the engineers or the, the shipmen, have to, like, would it have any serious effect if, for instance, you have a ship that was built to sail on the ocean in salt water, like, say, go down St. Lawrence River make it to the Great Lakes? I wasn't sure if it was possible back then, but anyways, I wonder if the buoyancy difference in salt and fresh water is that much where you actually have to take it into consideration when having so much weight on a boat.
Indian Confederation at the Battle of the Thames and were able to marry the British Navy in the Great Lakes at the Battle of Lake Erie in 1813. This allowed the Americans to retake Detroit. They then defeated the Indian Confederation at the Battle of the Thames and were able to kill Tecumseh in the fighting. Meanwhile, the British were blockading the United States. During this blockade, they managed to block slave ships from entering the US and freed thousands of slaves. Britain also gave freedom to any slaves who crossed into British territory, many of which would join in the war against America. In Europe in 1814, Napoleon had been defeated and forced into exile. This allowed Britain to focus on defeating the US. British troops landed in Chesapeake Bay, took Washington, D.C., and infamously burned down the White House. In the South, the British were funding the Red Stick Creek.
That doesn't count, all right? That's fair. Well done.
And infamously burned down the White House. In the South, the British were funding the Red Stick Creek against the Americans in the Creek War. However, by August 1814, under Andrew Jackson, the Americans managed to defeat the Creeks and take over a vast amount of land. In September 1814, the British moved into Maine successfully. However, in quick succession, the US was able to stop a British advance on New York and an assault on Baltimore. The latter battle gave the inspiration for the Star-Spangled Banner poem. The British then decided to withdraw from the northeast and prepared to attack New Orleans. However, peace talks had already begun by the end of 1814. The blockade was straining the American economy, and the British, who were trying to prevent European nations from taking territory from the French, did not see any advantage in pursuing a war with no real benefits. Peace was made in December. The Canadian border remained unchanged, the British agreed not to fund any Indian resistance to American expansion, and they had to give up the idea of an independent Indian nation on the border. However, unaware that a peace deal had been signed, the British attacked New Orleans in January 1815.
Kept on fighting.
The Americans, led by Andrew Jackson again, were able to hold them back. This final victory gave the Americans a feeling of national pride and success in the war, despite not really achieving any of their pre-war goals. In US politics, the war brought in the era of good feelings.
I just feel like we were the little brother, especially then. Like we loved to say like how we kicked out of America, like the little brother to Great Britain, and then here's round two in 1812. And so even if it was fought after the surrender was technically signed or agreed upon, or just the peace was agreed upon, we'd like to boast about, Andrew Jackson in New Orleans to be like a little brother would be like, ha, gotcha again.
And helped bring an end to the Federalist Party.
Love you, Brits. Awesome videos. I had to rewind a bit. Anyways, more of that next time. See you next time, guys.